What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. So today we've got an experiment, and what I'm gonna do, can I grow cover crops in a raised bed? And the reason why I wanna test this out is because I got a bunch of new raised beds out in my front yard. And the soil that I ordered 3 cubic yards of 65% topsoil. It's been screened, it's been amended with 35% compost, and most of that compost is cow, horse, or wood chips. And it's a bit heavy on the clay. It's a potentially low on organic matter. I'm not sure, soil tests are still coming in, but I have so many raised beds in the front yard, I figured why not test out a method that market gardeners use, a method that no-till, no-dig organic gardeners use, and that's cover cropping. And so what I have here is a fall mix from Johnny's Select Seeds, and I also have an inoculant. So we're gonna close up on these, and I'm gonna explain why you need both of these and what they do. So the first thing we've got is a fall green manure mix, and green manure is just another word for cover crops. And so what we have in here, as you can see, is we have about 40% of winter rye, about 30% of foraged pea, 10% of crimson clover, some inert matter, some other random stuff, some weed seeds, just because kind of like when they say 99.9% of germs, they can't guarantee there's 0 weeds, so they put a tiny percentage of weed in there. And then they've got some hairy vetch, and we have some rye grass. And it says noxious weeds, none have been found. Germination is 91%. And what do all these plants here have in common? Why would we be planting these? Well, the reason why is because they fix nitrogen in the soil. And we need that if we have a soil that doesn't really have too much organic matter in it, is not fertile. And so as we can see, use a fast-growing dense cover crop for mid to late summer seeding for erosion control and as a cover crop, establishes quickly in cool, wet fall weather, forms a dense mat to prevent soil erosion. Crimson clover, ryegrass, and peas will winter kill. Vetch and winter rye will regrow in spring. Well, I again live here in San Diego, so it's a little bit different for me. My late summer could technically be right now in November. Seedling rate, 1/4 pound for 225 square feet. I have 1/4 pound here, but I'm gonna experiment with planting a bit more densely because it doesn't really matter if I crowd out plants that I'm going to kill anyways, and I'm not using them for produce. So I'm not really too concerned about that. I'm gonna probably seed a bit heavier, and we're gonna go ahead and see if we can germinate this. However, although we can germinate this, we're going to need something called an inoculant, because the main reason these plants are so powerful is because they fix nitrogen, and they do that via these nodules on their roots. However, they need bacteria in the soil in order to do that well. And so what we're gonna cut to next is a look at the inoculant. All right, so what I have here is Verdesian Guard N. As you can see, it does soybeans, peas, vetch, lentils, dry beans, and peanut varieties. So it doesn't cover 100% of the crops that are in my cover crop mix, but it covers enough of them that I think it's gonna be just fine. And as you can see, it contains a bunch of beneficial bacteria, as well as some food for those bacteria, so that we can inoculate our cover crop mix. And you look at the back and you're like, ooh, this is intense, but it's actually pretty simple. There are 2 ways you can do this. The first way, as it says, is it can be applied either by using the slurry method or the sprinkle method. Slurry method will result in better seed adhesion, so we're gonna go ahead and go with the slurry method. All we need to do for the slurry method, place the contents of the bag in approximately 4.5 ounces of non-chlorinated water. Chlorine will definitely kill the bacteria. Stir inoculant, and then mix it onto the seed, and then what you go ahead and do is you disperse the seed like you normally would. So let's go ahead and boil some water to get all that chlorine out and mix this inoculant. All right, we are just gonna bring this water up to a boil, let it boil for a few minutes, and then let it cool back down to room temperature, and then we are going to inoculate. Pouring the boiling water so there's more surface area so it cools off a little quicker. All right, let's cut this open, get it ready to mix into the water. Actually, let's take a look at it first. It is pitch black inside, which I guess is just the color of all of that bacteria. So let's go ahead and mix it in once this water cools down. All right, so the water should have cooled down enough to mix this in, so let's just go ahead and get on it. Boom. It's like I'm dumping some charcoal in there. Kind of has like a blackish purple color to it. This is the part of gardening that I actually really enjoy, is like this scientific biology element to it. It's kind of hard to mix this stuff in too. It's sort of a bit chalky. So after I'm done mixing this in, what I need to do is then open up the seeds and thoroughly coat all of the seeds with this inoculant. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna broadcast it outside in the raised beds. And then problem should be done. We should just let the cover crops grow after we water them in. And I'll be doing some follow-up videos on the progress of these cover crops, what some mistakes I made were, what some improvements I could have made were, and maybe talking a little bit more about the science of cover cropping, because it's an area that I'm just getting into. And I find it really interesting that you can improve your soil via nature itself instead of having to buy in these different amendments and different fertilizers from really all around the world that may not be, created in a way that we all think is sustainable long term. All right, so let's do this. Let's get the seeds in there now. And I'm just gonna go ahead and do all 1/4 pound because these are pretty cheap and I don't wanna try to partition it at all. So I'm just gonna go ahead and mix all this stuff in. So this, of course, is getting the seeds wet enough they can germinate, but we're gonna go ahead and broadcast these outside in the raised beds in a way that makes sure that they're gonna germinate. All right, that should be pretty well coated. And now it's time to broadcast. Let's go. All right, so the first bed I'm gonna do is this one right here, but as you can see, I have drip installed. So what I'm gonna do is pull these stakes up and get the drip out of the way for the time being so I can broadcast, and then put a little amendment on top, maybe some compost, maybe some potting soil, and then go ahead and put the drip back on. So let's go ahead and get to that. So all we're doing here is just loosening up that top layer of soil to get ready for the broadcasting. Now it's time to spread. All right, so it's basically impossible to evenly spread seeds that are in a liquid mixture. So I'm gonna go ahead and just lightly spread this around with the rake, which will also serve the dual purpose of covering these up, and then we're gonna go ahead and water them in. Well, that's it, guys. That is how you do cover crops, or at least that's how you plant them. And I realized I didn't really talk a whole lot about why they're so important, why they make a really good alternative as compared to maybe buying in fertilizers, even if that's organic fertilizer. And so there's a few different reasons why you would want to use cover crops. And one of the major ones is soil erosion. And so during the winter, when we have storms, snow, sleet, hail, rain, it's very easy if you have a bare bed for that bed to just lose a lot of the topsoil, lose a lot of nutrients via drainage and washout. A dense cover crop network is not only going to protect the soil, but it's going to keep that soil together. You're not going to lose any topsoil. And that's just one of the many reasons why you would use a cover crop. Another one is that specifically cover crops that have deep taproots are effectively mining lower levels of your soil for nutrients, bringing them into the organic matter of the plant. And then eventually when you chop and drop it or till it under or work it back into the soil and that decomposes, that becomes a bioavailable nutrient for whatever you end up growing there next. And so basically you're using these as mining systems to go down into the soil to an area maybe a little deeper than normal with a deep taproot that wouldn't normally, that the nutrients are locked down there is what I'm getting at. And these deep taprooted cover crops can come in, do that mining work, pull it into their plant matter, and then eventually once they die and they decompose and they're broken down, the next thing that you grow is able to use that. Another reason why you would use it is that a lot of these cover crops are nitrogen fixers, meaning that what they do is they pair up with bacteria, which you saw on the inoculant, and the nodules on their roots fix atmospheric nitrogen and bring it into the soil in a way that can be used by the plants. So effectively, you've got these taproots that are mining nutrients below. You have bacteria and root nodules that are stealing nitrogen from the air. And so you are stealing from the environment and bringing it into this little localized section of the earth, your garden, your raised bed, your plot, whatever you want to call it. And the price of that is a few bucks, some inoculant, and some time, especially in a time where in most regions of the world, you aren't growing anything productive anyways. So why would you not do this? And this has become a really big movement for no-till gardeners, no-dig gardeners, market gardeners of all kinds. I believe Curtis Stone uses it. A lot of the guys who follow his method use it. So it's a really cool technique. I, again, am just a beginner. I'm just starting out, and I've got some beds to spare, so I figured why not dedicate some to cover crops, see how they do, see if I can till that under, chop and drop it, and see if that improves the soil quality for the next crop. And so I'm willing to sacrifice some beds in the meantime to do that. So until next time, I will be doing updates on this cover crop. So hit subscribe down below, hit that little bell, because that bell will tell you, hey, Kevin from Epic Gardening has a new video up. You might want to check it out. So if you hit the bell, you'll know about that. And definitely drop a comment if you have experience growing cover crops and maybe you saw a mistake that I did, or if you have questions, because I can answer some of them. Again, I'm no expert, but I'm just growing here just like you guys. So until next time, good luck in the garden and keep growing.